Okay, so this is just a quick recap of some of the things we've been learning about fractions. Okay, so to start with, we're just going to have a quick recap of equivalent fractions. So the first thing remember with equivalent fractions is you've got to look at the links between the denominators and the numerators. So in this first question here, where we're looking at 3/18, how many sixths is that? We're looking to see what is the link between the denominators, because those are the numbers that we know. So we know that 18 divided by 3 equals 6. So we've also got to do that to the numerator. What is 3 divided by 3? 1. So we know that 3/18 is the same as 1/6. Okay, so our next example, a half equals how many tenths? So we look at the link between 2 and 10, and 2 times 5 is 10. So we have to also do that to the numerator. 1 times 5 is 5. So a half is the same as 5/10, and we know that because 5 is half of 10. Okay, so for the next one, we're looking at 3/4 is how many twelfths? Well, we know that 4 times 3 is 12. So if we do the same thing to the numerator, 3 times 3 is 9. So therefore we can say that 3/4 is the same as 9/12. Okay, so 5/6 is how many 24ths? Well, we know that 6 times 4 is 24. So 5 times 4 is 20. So we can see that 5/6 is the same as 20 over 24. Okay, so for our next example, 3/5, how many 15ths? Well, we know that 5 times 3 is 15. We do the same to the number above. 3 times 3 is 9. So 3/5 is the same as 9/15. Okay, so finally, 4/9 is the same as how many 18ths? Well, we know that 9 times 2 is 18. So we need to do the same thing to the numerator. 4 times 2 is 8. So 4/9 is the same as 8/18. So next we're going to look at mixed numbers to improper fractions. It's a really important skill because it'll help you when you're adding them. Okay, so first of all we need to ask ourselves, if we're doing this question, 2 1/3, how many thirds is that? We're going to be saying, okay, well, how many thirds are going to be in 2 whole ones? So 2 wholes, if they're split into thirds, so if you think about it, if you had pizzas that were sliced into 3 slices and there were 2 whole pizzas, how many slices would you have? Well, you would have 6 in total. So you'd have 2 whole ones would be 6 entire slices of pizza. But then we also have this one extra. So we've got 2 wholes, which are our 6 slices, and then the extra one. So in total, that is 7 slices. So 2 1/3 is 7 thirds. Then if we've got 4 whole ones and each one is split into fifths, 4 times 5 is 20. Add our 3 extras, 23. And it's always useful, it can be useful to draw them out. So feel free to draw the boxes out if you need to. Okay, so if we were drawing out, for example, 4 could draw out 4, and I could imagine that they're all split into fifths. So I would be able to see there that I've got 4 lots of 5, which is 20, plus my 3 extra, which is 23. Okay, so if I've got 2 whole ones and they're split into eighths, 2 times 8 is 16, add 6 is 22. Then if I've got 1 whole one split into 2 and 1 extra, 1 times 2 is 2, add 1 gives me 3. Then if I've got 3 whole ones and they're each split into quarters, 3 times 4 is 12, add 1 extra 1, 13. Okay, so now we're going to look at adding fractions. Now remember, we can't add fractions that have different denominators, and it can be quite tricky to add fractions with the mixed numbers. So when we were doing this in class, we looked at several different ways of doing it, and you've all had different preferences. Some of you like to add up the whole numbers first and then deal with the fractions, and that's absolutely fine. Some of you like to convert the mixed numbers into improper fractions and then add them up. That's fine too. So because sometimes the method we use can depend on the question. So I think with this question here, 2 1/3 add 1 1/4, actually the easier method is probably to add the 2 whole ones together and then take the 1/3 and the 1/4 separately. So we're going to do that. So I can say that 2 and 1 is 3. So here I'm adding 3. So I'm already saying, well, I've added my 1 and my 2. And I'm adding 1/3 and 1/4. Now we know that I can't add 1/3 and 1/4 because they've got different denominators. So I've got to convert them to an equivalent fraction. So my question is, which times table, what number is in the 3 times table and in the 4 times table? I need to find a number that is in the 3 and 4 times table. It is a multiple of 3 and it is a multiple of 4. The number I'm going to choose is 12, but there are several other options you could choose. So I've got my 3 whole ones, and I need to know what 1/3 is in twelfths and what 1/4 is in twelfths. So I need to think, right, well, 3 times 4 is 12, so I've got to do 1 times 4 as well, which is 4. Then I need to think, right, well, 4 times 3 is 12, so I've got to do 1 times 3, which is 3. And then I've got the 2 that I can add together, so I've got my 4 here, and my 3 here, 4 and 3. 4 and 3 is 7. So I know that I've got 3 and 7 twelfths. Are 7 and 12 in the same times table? No, they're not, so I can't simplify that anymore. Okay, so the questions that you've got on your sheet, you've got 2 and 3 whole ones, so you can add those together. And then you've got 1/5 and 2/5, and actually they've got the same denominator, so I think you should be able to do that. Then this question, 3/5 is the same as 18 something. Well, you know that 3 times what? 3 times something is 18. So once you've figured out what that is, you times 5 by the same something, and that will give you the denominator. Then here we've got 2 times something is 12. So you times 5 by that same something, and that will give you the denominator. Okay, here you've got 5/11ths and 7/11ths. So that number will give you an improper fraction. So I wonder if you can convert the answer to a mixed number. Then here we've got 3/7 times 8. So we haven't actually talked about multiplication yet. So remember, we have done whole numbers, and we could say that 3 times 8 is 24. So you would have 24/7. So can you convert that? What can you divide 24? If you divide it by 7, what do you get? That would be your whole number. And then how many are left? So see if you can convert that to a mixed number.